The story kicks off with Senpai giving a guy a bit of a hard time for not double checking his work. He apologizes and walks away, thinking to himself that while she can be tough, there's definitely more to her than what she shows. As he's leaving, someone calls out to him, addressing him as Kamigawa, and asks how he's finding his time in the PR department. Kamigawa responds that it's pretty relaxed since his senpai in charge of training doesn't seem to pay much attention. Curious, he asks the other guy about his experience. But before he can answer, a woman suddenly steps between them, asking them to move because they're in her way. They both look at her in surprise, and Kamigawa quickly apologizes to her, realizing she's Kanawa Senpai. As she walks away, Kamigawa comments that she seems intense, but the other boy doesn't argue, and they keep chatting. Meanwhile, Kanawa Senpai steps into a room and breathes a sigh of relief, happy that she finally managed to greet Kamigawa, something she'd been struggling with. Kamigawa greets her every day, but she usually finds it hard to respond, which makes her feel bad. She smiles to herself, proud that she finally did it, even though it wasn't perfect. Just then, Kamigawa calls her name, and her expression immediately shifts to a more serious one as she questions him about something. Startled, Kamigawa quickly apologizes, but she reassures him that it's fine. Inside, she wishes she could be gentler, but her role as a supervisor makes it tough to soften her tone. As they talk, she overhears others outside the room calling her rude and scary, which makes her sad. She accidentally drops her tablet, and Kamigawa picks it up, noticing that she had been searching for advice on interacting with her kohai. Embarrassed, she grabs it from him, and he quickly apologizes for looking at it. She regains her composure and asks why he came to see her, and he casually responds before telling his colleagues how lucky he is to know how kind Kanawa Senpai really is. He apologizes again for overstepping, and though Kanawa doesn't thank him outright, she mumbles it quietly, showing that she's actually kind beneath her tough exterior. Later, at a welcome party, Kanawa Senpai announces that she doesn't enjoy public speaking. So if anyone has complaints, they should take it up with whoever put her in charge of the speech. She then gives a direct, no-nonsense cheer, leaving everyone surprised by her bluntness. Kamigawa just chuckles, knowing that he's one of the few who truly understand how kind she really is. During a party, a man asks Kamigawa how things are going with Kanawa Senpai. Kamigawa surprises him by saying everything's going smoothly, even though most newbies find her intimidating. Kamigawa admits he appreciates her directness, especially when she points out his mistakes. The man pats him on the back, praising his mature attitude. As the party continued, others encouraged Kamigawa to drink. He hesitates, but eventually agrees. Just as he's about to take a sip, Kanawa snatches the cup and drinks it herself, surprising everyone. Knowing Kamigawa can't handle alcohol, she shouts that at his mentor, she must test the drink first. Embarrassed, she retreats, feeling awful. Kamigawa checks on her and she admits she's not feeling well. He agrees to inform the others and helps her leave. As they walk outside, Kanawa apologizes for being too harsh. Kamigawa reassures her that she did the right thing since he truly can't handle alcohol. After a moment, he awkwardly suggests they grab a drink together sometime. To his surprise, she agrees. The next day, Kanawa notices Kamigawa smells like alcohol and playfully comments on it. She then spots a lipstick mark on his shirt and wonders if he has a girlfriend. Kamigawa explains that the lipstick is from helping her into a taxi the night before. Embarrassed, Kanawa tells him to get rid of the shirt. They joke around and she admits she's self-conscious about her appearance. Kamigawa reassures her he isn't staring at her but compliments her ponytail, which makes her blush. She playfully hits him with her hair, turning the moment into a light-hearted one. Kanawa tells Kamigawa to let her know if he runs into any trouble, but he thanks her and insists he wants to handle it himself. He appreciates the offer, which makes her smile. She's pleased with his independence, but keeps an eye on him. 10 minutes go by, and he still hasn't asked for help. 30 minutes later, he's still struggling, so she steps in, noticing his difficulty. Her face lights up when he finally admits he needs assistance, and she quickly explains the confusing part. At lunchtime, Kanawa spots Kamigawa's simple bowl of noodles and, with a hint of coldness, asks him what he's eating. He explains it's his lunch and admits he's short on cash. Her gaze lingers on his noodles, and he mentions he's saving for next month and must make do until payday. Slightly blushing, she insists on treating him to a better meal. Confused, he hesitates, saying it's his own fault he's in this situation. Kanawa firmly states that if he gets sick from eating cheap food and is late to work, she'll take the blame as his mentor. She tells him to stop arguing and follow her. Realizing she's serious, Kamigawa agrees. In the restaurant, Kanawa feels a warm glow of satisfaction as they look over the menu. She managed to invite him to lunch, a gesture she had longed to make since her senpai used to do the same for her when she was new. Kamigawa tries to be helpful, handing her water and napkins, which confuses her because she thinks she is supposed to take charge. Nervously, she starts speaking in a dialect, making Kamigawa wonder if he's done something wrong. When the waiter arrives, they place their orders. Kanawa's smile fades when she sees Kamigawa has chosen a salad. She had hoped he would order something more substantial like meat, especially since she was paying. He explains that the other menu items were too expensive. Scolding him, she asks if he's trying to be frugal and insists he needs a proper meal. Determined, she shares some of her meat with him, then gives him all her food to make sure he eats well. As they continue their meal, she questions if adding sugar to the food would spoil it, calling the idea blasphemous. Kamigawa suggests a bit of sugar might actually improve the flavour. She tells him it's not needed and wonders why she's trying to act cool, remembering how her senpai always drank black coffee to stay awake. Kamigawa thinks coffee might suit her since she likes sweets. She takes a sip, finds it's bitter, and blushes. Noticing her reaction, Kamigawa asks if she wants sugar or cream. She says to add both, and he does. Back in the office, Kanawa tells Kamigawa not to sleep there and notices his hands are so large she can wrap both of hers around one. Fascinated, she explores his hands, finding a callus. Blushing, she pinches it gently, making him wince. Later, seeing him play a racing game, she asks what he's doing. He explains it's related to work and he's practicing because he isn't very skilled. She offers to help, confident in her gaming skills, and they start playing together. Both of them end up losing their game, and Kanawa, annoyed, insists they play again. Kamigawa suggests they tackle the beginner level together, and Kanawa blushes as she agrees, trying to hide her embarrassment. The next day at work, Kanawa hears Kamigawa mention needing a wedding gift for a high school friend. He's not sure what to get, so Kanawa decides to help. After work though, she's stuck and frustrated because she never bought a wedding gift before and hasn't been invited to many weddings. Determined not to let Kamigawa down, she presses on. While shopping for gifts, Kanawa spots a cute cat mug and picks it up. Kamigawa notices and thinks it could be a great gift. Kanawa, flustered, accidentally drops the mug, shattering it. Both are shocked and Kamigawa apologizes, thinking he startled her. A store worker checks to see if she's okay, and Kanawa, feeling mortified, offers to pay for the mug, but the worker says it's fine. Kamigawa then asks if there are more mugs available. When the worker says there are, he decides to buy one for himself. Kanawa, still embarrassed, tells him not to buy it just because of her. Kamigawa explains he genuinely likes the mug and wants one for himself. Annoyed, Kanawa insists on paying, but Kamigawa argues that since he's buying it for himself, he should foot the bill. The next day, Kanawa is still feeling down, worried she didn't help Kamigawa properly. She researches and thinks a towel set might be a good gift. When she sees the cat mug on Kamigawa's desk, She asks about it. Kamigawa explains he bought it because he thought she'd like it and wanted to thank her for the lunch invite. Kanawa, a bit flustered, says she'll use it for her toothbrush, which surprises Kamigawa. Later, Kanawa offers to help with a new project, but Kamigawa says he'll manage on his own. This response surprises Kanawa, as he used to be excited about her help. Feeling a bit down, she tries to hide it, but Kamigawa notices and asks if she's okay. She admits her eyes are just dry, relieved he doesn't hold any negative feelings towards her. Kamigawa hands Kanawa a small bottle of eye drops, and she takes them with a grateful nod, apologizing and saying she gets why he's pushing himself so hard. She warns him, though, that if he keeps overdoing it, he might end up causing more problems for those around him. Kamigawa is sorry and says he'll be more careful. Later, Kanawa comes back with drinks and finds Kamigawa dozing at his desk. She gently tells him he did a great job and drapes a scarf around his neck. They catch a taxi home together, and Kanawa jokes about how he's making her feel overheated just by wearing a suit in the blazing heat. Kamigawa explains he had a client meeting and thought the suit was necessary. Kanawa insists he should take it off, which he does, wiping the sweat off his forehead. When Kamigawa returns, he sees Kanawa wearing his coat and raises an eyebrow in surprise. Kanawa, feeling a bit embarrassed, scolds him for using his phone at work. Kamigawa clarifies he was just checking on some model kits he likes. Kanawa teased him about being too old for kid stuff, which hits him hard. He retorts that if she's calling him childish, then she must be too for having fun with his suit. Kanawa blushes and admits that sometimes she enjoys reliving her childhood, even though she never played with Tamagotchis, just Uka. The next day, Kanawa finds out she's missing a crucial document for a meeting. Kamigawa quickly says that he'll get it, but she realizes she left her phone on her desk and gestures for him to grab it. When Kamigawa looks confused, she nervously slips into her dialect and asks him directly. He rushes to fetch the phone, understanding her plight. Kanawa is surprised to learn Kamigawa is staying late to help a senior colleague, even with a typhoon approaching. Kamigawa says it's a favor for an old college buddy. Kanawa insists he shouldn't risk it and tells the senior to handle his own work. The senior thanks her and Kamigawa promises he'll refuse such requests in future. As they prepare to leave, Kanawa realizes she forgot her umbrella. Kamigawa asks her opinion on vacation plans and she agrees that travelling sounds great. He's unsure where to go and asks her about her past trips. Kanawa admits she hasn't travelled much outside school excursions and mostly stayed home playing games. She borrows a story from a friend about a crowded trip to Inoshima and shares it with Kamigawa. Kamigawa decides to stay home and play video games instead. Kanawa gets excited when he mentions a remake of his favourite game, guessing it's the Final Fantasy VII remake. She enthusiastically recommends it and says she's a bit jealous of those getting to play it for the first time. She also mentions she might replay the original version herself. Kanawa warns Kamigawa not to play Crisis Core before finishing the main game, but the conversation veers off as the person advising him starts rambling about rewatching Star Wars. Embarrassed, she blushes, realizing she went off topic. Kamigawa admits he almost got tricked by a friend's advice to start with Crisis Core. He notices her love for games and asks for recommendations, keeping the conversation going. Just then, their boss interrupts, informing them they need to go on a business trip to Okinawa, leaving Kamigawa stunned by the sudden request. In a flashback, Kamigawa recalls being extremely nervous before an interview. A staff member notices and advises him to show his character rather than rely on memorized lines. Her advice calmed him, and he thanked her before heading into the interview. During a photo shoot, Kamigawa asks why she's also wearing a swimsuit. She explains it's to be polite, which makes him worry she's pushing herself too hard. When a crew member compliments her, Kamigawa feels uneasy and abruptly announces it's time for dinner, leading everyone out. She thanks him for stepping in, but he brushes it off, confused by his earlier feelings. Later, due to a booking mistake, they end up sharing a hotel room. Kamigawa offers to stay at a manga cafe, but she reassures him that sharing a room is no big deal. Kamigawa, feeling a bit jealous of her previous superior, suggests checking out the store, but she hands him a game controller, challenging him to a rematch. Despite being there for work, he accepts, determined to win again. The next day, they barely make it to check out on time, admitting they stayed up all night playing games. She later seeks advice from her superiors about managing her passionate subordinate, leaving her superior stunned when she mentions discussing models while drinking. Back at work, they run into each other at the store, chatting about shopping habits. She teases him about marrying someone who can cook, only to feel embarrassed. Kamigawa responds that he wouldn't mind if someone tried their best, leaving her blushing. Later, he notices a paper cut on her hand, but she brushes off his concern. While he offers to help with work, she tells him to help someone else, leaving him confused. Another day, she warns him against overworking, worried he might get sick and demotivate her. Kamigawa, touched, thanks her, and jokes that he wouldn't mind if she nursed him back to health, eventually stunning her. Do you think that love is finally starting to blossom between Kanawa and Kamigawa? Keep watching to find out in the upcoming episodes.